Well, hello, everybody. This is Larry from the Blue Collar Nation podcast. And I'm here with the Tech Whisperer, my punctilious business partner. And we're going to have an amazing podcast. What's happening there?
Whoa. I've never heard the word punctilious. So explain what that is.
I thought you knew all the words.
I generally have a pretty good vocabulary, but I have not heard punctilious before.
Punctilious, dictionary.com, adjective, strictly attentive to minute details of form and action and conduct. Synonym, meticulous. Oh my gosh, it's the worst.
So true. Gregg,
and our guest today is going to be on my side, I think, with that.
Gregg, I catch so much grief from Larry for being detail oriented. He treats it like it's a disease.
Oh my gosh, it's like sitting on the brakes on the freeway in traffic. You just want to choke yourself out.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
Yeah.
But
So
Larry,
anyway,
we always get where we need to go when I'm doing that.
Yeah,
that's the important thing, man. That's the key.
So today's podcast is sponsored by SuperTech University. And SuperTech University takes the pain out of your business. And what I'm saying is, Eric and I started these meetings with our technicians, and I was going around the country meeting with different people. Might have you seen it on social media? I'm meeting with different countries, different people.
You're different countries?
No, around this country, the United States.
Okay.
And I was meeting with an owner in a client in north of Dallas. It was a really good guy. And he's like, I said, well, how'd you find us? And we're having a conversation. He goes, my technicians were underperforming so much. I was in pain and I did not know what to do. And I was kind of losing my mind.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. And he looked us up on the internet and he found us, did a couple searches and he found us and he goes, your lessons are doing just what I never had time to do. I never had time to come up with the content to educate my guys to do a great job, because the techs want to do a good job generally, but he didn't have the skill set to do it, nor the time to come up with quality content, which you do in a very punctilious fashion that resonates with the technicians, which goes a long way. So anyway, go to supertechu.com.
Most technicians are punctilious as well.
I know. That's why you resonated with them and I didn't.
That's true.
Go to supertechu.com. Go look at the punctilious lessons that we've got here. Some samples for you to check it out and sign up and benefit your team. Invest in your guys. It'll be the best thing you can do. Your guys, your ladies, if you have ladies technicians as well. And we're getting back to the podcast today. We have the amazing Gregg Taylor here. We're very excited. Gregg Taylor is a managing member and chairperson of GTE Holdings. He's a coach, analyst, public speaker, and a big business acquisition specialist. He works with Paul Davis, Belfour, and ServPro, and large independent companies, and he's going to educate us on what he does exactly in this interview. It's wonderful to see you, Gregg.
Hey guys, man, thank you for having me. I've got to get back to my team and find out if I've ever been called punctilious. I don't know if punk is short for punctilious, and I've heard people say that, so that's a possibility. But I'm going to have to go back and do a survey and try to be like Eric.
I don't know, Gregg. You and I have had a pretty long conversation on Zoom before, and I think you're a lot of things, but I didn't get punctilious out of it. I think you and Larry are way too much fun for punctilious.
I tell you, that's right. And Larry needs Eric, and I need Kim Silbar on our team, who's the detail person. Thank God we have somebody that does that, man. That's the ticket. So GTE Holdings owns a consulting company, Strategy by GTE, and it owns our restoration industry recruiting agency, which is exactly by GTE. And we really got into this restoration industry from the consulting side. I had an opportunity to do some work for Paul Davis as a regional business consultant, had a lot of years of experience consulting, and got to know the industry through them. They let me handle 23 of their offices in Florida. And so we got to see everything from top to bottom. Their oldest franchisee is in Florida. I think at that time, Chris was probably around, I think, 39 years. Leon Berry opened up a brand new location while I was there. So I got to see, firsthand the beginning and what an experienced and franchise looks like and everything in between. I went to owner school and I got IICRC certified so that I could really speak the lingo, went out and sucked water, learned how to do that. Nobody would hire me. Trust me, your insurance company would go crazy, but I did get the certification and fell in love with the industry.
You weren't punctilious enough to be a good mitt tech.
That is correct. And that now we got use of the word. I'm going to make sure I put that out there on LinkedIn. That's the ticket. So that's how we got to this point. I can tell you, we did a lot of great things with Paul Davis. One of the things we didn't do well was recruit. And so when I talked to the folks at corporate about it, they said that wasn't a Florida problem. It's a network problem. Eric, you and I attended the RIA. I think we had a chance to meet there. Yeah. And I asked them, talking to all sorts of folks, and found out that recruiting is a huge challenge. This was before COVID even. And so my team felt like we could put together an organization that focused in on this industry and just recruiting for this industry. And that's what exactly by GTE does.
Yeah. So what positions are you generally recruiting for?
We have two different sides of the business. So one is kind of our white collar area where we look for sales reps, admin people, management, coordinators, that sort of thing. And then we have our skilled side, which is looking at estimators and project managers. We're looking at production team members. We don't do technicians and very few MIT managers. The market really doesn't allow for that, but that's kind of where our focus is.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So let me ask you this. I mean, we're on the heels of the Great Resignation, but if you don't mind, Greg, Larry and I dealt with that in the greater Los Angeles market way before COVID. Okay. I mean, we had a very, very hard time getting people because Amazon dropped several distribution centers in our lap, and it pretty much decimated all of that kind of entry level labor that normally we would pick up. Mm-hmm. We were just on the other side of the county line from LA County, and they raised the minimum wage by like $5 overnight. Yep. Right. So all of a sudden people are like, well, I can drive 15 minutes and make $5 more. Right. And, we had to get very, very creative to get talent. So, I find it kind of interesting, the things that people are saying now. Larry and I kind of look at each other like we've lived that, but we did it 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So what is the current state of the industry as far as getting people who want to work and know what they're doing?
Yeah, I think the numbers tell us a story. But then we have what are we doing about that story, right? So I'm with you. Even before COVID, it was a struggle, especially when you got down to the tech level. The industry is struggling right now with techs. We hear from firms that call us and say, listen, we need techs. We're not able to do these jobs because we don't have the boots on the ground.
Yeah, it's the bottleneck at this point.
Absolutely. It's the biggest deal. Companies like us stand aside from techs because when we're talking to them, they don't show up for interviews, right? They don't show up for they sometimes don't even show up for the first or second day of work, right? So and why? Well, as you said, there are a lot of other things out there now that they can turn to make a living and at a better pay rate. So the industry is struggling in that area overall at the lower end of the scale. The industry, I think, is also struggling with a lot of sales reps. It's a big need for those folks that have people. They're trying to grow their market share, and so sales reps have become a huge part of what we do. But I think that the Great Resignation, this big thing, is much like you and Larry experienced. COVID exacerbated it, right, but it was already happening, right? It was already happening. Yeah. And so if the industry doesn't understand the value of the people who have the boots on the ground, then the industry will continue to struggle. And I think that's the big dichotomy right now is what was, but what is different. And can the industry adapt to it?
Yeah. And, I think, Greg, I think you were in the audience when I was on that R&R panel in Vegas at, I guess, Nexus or whatever. And, it's interesting though. And Larry and I see this, to attract talent, you have to be an attractive company.
Correct.
It cuts both ways, right? Like, oh, there's no good people. Well, I don't know, guys like Ben Surdy and Nicole Humber, they seem to be pulling in plenty of people, right?
Correct.
So, Larry and I had to learn that. We in the early years were admittedly not an attractive place to work. Mm-hmm. And we had to learn what kind of company we had to build to actually be able to attract the right talent. Mm-hmm. I think too many people may just look at you and say, Greg, go find me somebody.
Right.
It's like, yeah, but you got to do your part to make sure they want to stay.
Yeah.
Or even take the job.
That's right. That's right. It's always incumbent upon us to ask deeper questions, right? So someone wants to hire us. That's great. That's a good start. But we have an in-depth conversation about who they are, especially if we don't know them. Like, who are you? What is your culture? Right? Those questions are important. And I know that sometimes clients or potential clients are alarmed by that type of question. But the folks that want to go work for them want to know, do you support breast cancer, right? Do you support helping children who are hungry? Like, tell me what your organization is about. It used to not be an issue. Nobody cared, but now they care. And so we have to bring that out of our client to make sure that we can address that with the talent that's thinking about working for them.
Well, and it's, let's get real. The three of us are of a certain age, right?
Yes.
Right. So,
exactly.
what's, hey, you know what my company's about? It's about me getting a boat.
That's right. Yes, so, absolutely.
And
it's not the right answer, by the way.
No. What I'm saying, Larry, but there's a certain group of us that, that was totally a normal response 20 years ago, right? Like, I took the risk, I've done the work, I want to be rewarded for that work. And now that we have kind of, millennial and Generation Z people applying for these jobs, they want more than that. I don't think they're begrudging, Larry, you and I a boat, but we also have to be doing the things that Greg was talking about.
Yeah, like take them on the boat.
There's a lag with ownership mentality. Is that true, Greg? Am I off base?
There's no question, right? For those of us, the three of us, we've been business owners for a long period of time. And I have to rely on some of the younger people to bring us up to speed on things.
Right.
There's no question about it. Like things that worked for me in the past may not work in the future. And so I've got to ask a lot of questions, right? Makes it inclusive. But here's some interesting facts just to talk about how this industry needs to look at things. So there was a huge study done with 495 restoration industry people. That was the focus group for this study. Generation Z, they're interested in salary. That was top line for them was pay. The millennials, team culture, followed by growth potential. No mention of salary. Generation X, all about growth potential. Where can I go from here? And then when you get to our stage, the baby boomers, right? It was all about location, followed by salary, followed by culture and fulfilling work. Yeah. So if I am talking to a person, I really need to take the time to understand who that individual is and what will appeal to them. It's not a cookie cutter thing anymore where everything fits all. We have to look at each individual and get a feel for what's going to interest them and then see if we can meet.
So when you're placing people, you have to place them with they're going to match up best with the company. You can't put somebody in a company that doesn't meet their values.
That's correct.
Success. And then if that's what they're looking for, so that's a lot of extra strategy in your job when you're trying to figure people out instead of just, okay, we got an opportunity here. Why don't you go talk to them? Well, yes. Now you probably don't want to talk to them because you're going to clash with that guy.
Correct. There are some candidates that are A players for certain organizations. And that same candidate would be a no-go, can't fit within another one. Yeah. So we try to elicit from the client, right? What's your culture? right? It's a little easier with, say, a Paul Davis, which is a tightly run franchise company where things are pretty much the same. Belfour, which, they're all corporate owned, so things are the same in terms of processes. But I can tell you that, Belfour in Anaheim is totally different than Belfour and Marlboro up in Massachusetts, right? So it's the same company. I know how Anaheim runs their organization. I know how Marlboro runs theirs, and I know the type of person that would work inside of the culture of each of those locations. That's how we differentiate ourselves, is we get deep, and we spend a lot of money and time to do that. But that's how you get people that stay, right? Rather than just filling a gap in a Band-Aid and you have turnover, and why do you need us if that's what we're going to be giving you? So yes, it's some work.
Greg, there's so much nuance to what you're doing it that way.
There is, but having been a consultant to the industry, the nuance was necessary because that's what I learned. I learned that the nuances and the individuals are different. So yeah, we had to bring that to bear in this company.
So let me ask you something about the nuance that we're talking about here. The company owners, when they're looking for technicians, do they need to market a particular nuance to get the technicians to, we said show up. Of course, we're serious and joking at the same time.
Yeah.
But is there a nuance that they can do to attract more technicians before, as they put their ad out or whatever they put on Indeed or Glassdoor, or I guess not Glassdoor, but Craigslist, et cetera, et cetera?
Correct. So I think part of it is just what you mentioned, right? Where are they trying to find these people? So shockingly, this study also showed that 48% of incoming workers, especially in the tech area, don't come from any of those sources. They come from referrals.
Yeah. You got to have your team loving you. So they bring their friends. So Greg, are we referring to the know-how study?
I thought that the know-how study really honed in on the restoration industry and gave us some great food for thought. What did you think?
I did. I thought the same thing. We've had Leighton Healy on the podcast a couple times. And, when I read that, it really mimicked a lot of what Larry and I experienced, because we tended to, who are we getting when Amazon drops multiple, locations near us? We're getting the friends of our existing employees.
That's right.
Because they're like, look, Eric and Larry care, Eric and Larry, because we did do a 180 on our culture. And we did make it a very millennial friendly, employee driven company. But there was a learning curve for us because we didn't grow up that way.
Correct.
But I think Larry and I also recognize, Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we recognize pretty quick, like we need our people to love it here to get their people to come love it here too.
Yeah. And also to stay there as well.
To stay.
We had to get these guys to love the environment, enjoy coming to work. Otherwise we'd have to be looking for more people. And there's a bunch of plumbers at an event I was at recently. They're just like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, well, I could tell you what to do. And I made suggestions and they rolled their eyes and they're like, oh man.
Everybody wants to think that the human element is like somehow weak or soft or something. And it's so backwards thinking in a lot of ways.
It is. At the end of the day,
hang on a second. You can't say backward thinking because most of these business owners are successful. And
I didn't say they weren't successful. I didn't say they weren't successful.
It's not back. They just have to change their perspective on things with the way that they're viewing their team. Look at what happened to me when I was telling the guys to get away from the pineapples, away from the stuff that I was giving away to our clients. Hey, those are for our best clients.
That was backwards thinking.
You're alienating our audience there, Mr. Sprague. What the heck are you doing? That's not very.
I'm just telling the truth. We've done it. The people that are coming to the door aren't the same people a lot of times that the owners are because there's an age differential. And I think we have to think, like Greg said, be more forward thinking, like he has within his team to say, we need to think this way now.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant by that. And look, we didn't come naturally to us either.
No.
We had to learn the hard way of, our Greg, early years, our our front door was like a turnstile. People would come in and go, the suck's working here, and they're right out. And Larry and I finally reached the pain threshold, kind of like he was talking about the plumbers, where he and I had to really look in the mirror and say, well, we're the common denominator here.
Mhm. Mhm.
Was there a process with you, Gregg, where you saw what was going on? Did you have to go through a couple mistakes, or did somebody guide you along the way?
Oh yeah, I mean we have made big strides and fallen on our face a few times. Like, this is not easy.
No.
And you know, if you go get a fish, right, you get a book that says the care and feeding of a fish. When you're talking about an individual, you don't get that book, right? So we made mistakes in terms of not asking those cultural questions up front. We really were just getting people placed. But even internally, right? Internally, we had to feel like the training that we did was very effective. That was our opinion, right? And then we go out there and we start shooting live bullets, and it's like, we're kind of missing on this, right? Let's get some more information. Let's try to make this better. So I think it's always learning, and I think most of the people in this industry understand the need to always learn. But then the question is who's there to teach you? Right? It's like being an independent consultant. After a while, the only people you learn from is yourself, right? So you've got to go attend these classes, and you've got to get education from outsiders. I think that this industry, some of the folks that have been doing it a long time and do it successfully, doesn't mean that they're going to be successful in the future if they're not able to pivot to what the market and the people and the things that you need to do to be successful are what they are versus what they used to be.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, I have a guy that's a neighbor of mine. He's very successful in a bunch of different businesses. And it's kind of what you just said. He said, you know what I like about business? I like that it's kind of like trying to stand up straight on a waterbed. It's just, it's always moving, right? So you always have to be adjusting left, right, front,
That's right.
back.
That's right.
Because the challenge is just what you said, Gregg. It's like, just because it works today doesn't mean it's going to work tomorrow.
No doubt.
And when he said that, I chuckled just like you guys did, but then I kind of walked away and went, that was very profound, actually, because that just means that, like, he kind of talked to him since about it. He's like, yeah, just everything's changing around me all the time. And I have to adapt.
Something small, right? Something small. Let me give you an example. For some reason, you know how Apple tends to work, right? Apple tends to always let my phone stop working when the new edition comes out. Like, it was perfect, right? And I don't need the iPhone 13. My 11 is doing just fine. And then suddenly my 11 stops working, right? So you get this phone and you make this change. And then my daughter comes and says, why are you looking at the phone like here? Like, I can't read it. Well, this is how you change the font. Like, how did you know that? Like, I didn't know that, didn't know how to change the font. You haven't read the manual. But I think there are things that the younger generation are raised with, right? That are positive and negative, right? So they get the feel for technology much more than you and I do. So in this industry, let me tell you one thing that we had to do, just something simple. We grew up where email, when we became business people, email was the best way to contact somebody. That has been dwarfed by texting. Like, texting is the key. Everybody checks their phone on a text versus an email. People don't get to that, especially that younger generation. They get to their emails every once in a while, but because everything's about instant gratification, you send the text, you get an answer. I know when I get texted, I answer most of the time. We had to make that change internally to say, we're sending these emails, which could be going into spam. Like, we need to start texting people. Small thing, big change. That's what we're talking about in terms of how do we pivot to what is now.
Gregg, that's a great story. In our own business, when we first started, this is almost 15 years ago, we had younger guys, and Larry and I were experienced leaders, and Larry needed a guy was having a problem on a job, and he texted Larry what the problem was, and Larry texted back, call me. And then he texted another long thing, and Larry texted, call me.
Right.
And then he texted like another long thing. And then Larry wrote, text me or call me or you're fired. And then the phone rang. But it was a learning moment for Larry and I, because we're like, maybe we need to adapt to what they do.
Yeah. There's no doubt. My middle son was in school now. My middle son was a lot like me, right? He went to college because he had to, pretty much, right? It wasn't what he wanted to do, and him and I got grades that's a good thing I'm a business owner and I can hire myself, right? That's how I see it. Like, we just weren't there. But so he's in class one day and he texts me, "Hey Pop, what time do we need to be there on Sunday?" So I called it and he answered the phone and he's like, "Pop, I texted you. I'm in class." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm mortified. Like, first of all, he's barking at me. That doesn't usually happen. And he's in class." And so he said, "So text." Right. And I thought, okay, right. So I started texting.
Like, how am I supposed to know these things?
Thank you. Nobody told me. No one told me. But that's how the world changes. And if not just the owners, it's also the staff in the organization, right? Not everybody gets to meet the owner and spend time with the owner, but the people who are working with people have to understand what technology can do, how people communicate these days, and be able to meet those needs. I think in order to have the type of place where I am willing to go home and tell my best friend, "They got an opening, you've been looking for a job, like, you need to come with me." Like, that's what we need in order to get to the next level.
So I guess then the question would be, and I'm sure, so you're working with some of the biggest companies in our industry.
Yeah.
What changes from our side of it do we all need to make? And I'm sure they're really working hard at this. Like, what do you see? Like, what's the trickle down? Like, what can we do to try to get people to actually want to come?
I think, Eric, what impressed me when I saw you on the dais there and what you spoke about at that event in Vegas, and what you and I spoke about when we had a chance to talk one-on-one. I think it starts with the industry becoming popular, becoming well-known. I think it starts with understanding that, and I got live situations are the best example that I can give you, right? So I got my oldest son. My oldest son's an attorney. My youngest son is a doctor. My middle son is Bryce. He's a very successful sales rep, right? And I've got a 17-year-old daughter who does not get good grades, and she wants to be a makeup artist, and she's doggone good at makeup. Right. So, when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, she's starting her senior year, talked about college, and she was shocked that I said, "You probably don't want to go to a 4-year college. Yep. Literally, for your business, you take some business courses and really focus in on your skill set." It's the same thing with my stepson, who could get straight A's, not interested in school, great with his hands, but nobody told him about the restoration industry. Right. That he could be a guy who could start off as a tech and in 3 years be a project manager or estimator that's making $80,000 to $100,000 a year. But because he's not a 4-year college candidate, then he gets put out to pasture, so to speak, where he's never in a position to make great money when this huge and growing industry has all this opportunity and people can get to where they can go faster. Like, he could become, I told him, you can make as much as my son who's a lawyer and not have student loans. Totally. So, it's amazing, but the industry has not yet gotten to the point where we work our way up and start to inform people of what's available in our tremendous industry, if you ask me.
Yeah. I get frustrated when they always say, "Oh, the skilled trades," which is plumbing, HVAC, and electrical. And I'm always like, you got to be pretty darn skilled to be a good mitigation technician. There's a lot going on there.
That's correct.
And, I think it's incumbent upon us as an industry to try to get that skilled designation. I don't know who it's going to take or what it's going to take, but, I think if they were training restoration, in vocational schools,
Right.
a lot of kids would be like, this is actually the one that I like the best, because especially the ones that love helping people.
That's right.
I mean, yes, all of those trades are helping people in their time of need, but nothing's like restoration when it comes to that. When that house is underwater and you're there for them. I mean, there's a lot of people who really gain a lot of value out of doing stuff like that, but they don't know that it exists.
They don't. What the example I can give you is my past life, right? So I wasn't born into a business position. I came up the hard way through corporate America, and I got hired by a funeral service company. And I've always said there is an unbelievable match between funeral service and restoration. You got a lot of mom and pops out there that own funeral homes. Where did they get their knowledge from? Passed down from their dad or their grandmother or their mom who owned it and passed it on to future generations, right? They generate an enormous amount of revenue, but nobody knows about them, right? So nobody knows that these opportunities are available. Where they made the difference is they started creating funeral schools, so that if I left high school and wanted to be a funeral director, I could go directly to one of those funeral schools and learn how to become an embalmer, learn how to become a funeral director, and have a career. I think when this industry decides to do kind of what you and I talked about, let's increase the education level. Let's let people know this industry exists, because frankly, nobody wants to know their local funeral home until they need one. And nobody cares or wants to know their local restoration company until they need one. So we have to be proactive in letting people know that we exist.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be so cool to, I just did a podcast about this last night, actually. If somebody had come to my high school, and I was a terrible student, admittedly, and I like to work with my hands, and, wasn't dumb, but I just didn't like sitting in school all day. Right. And if somebody said, hey, you know what? You can go to vocational school, and here's what you need to learn to be a technician. Here's what you need to learn to become a project manager. Here's what you need to learn to become an estimator. And if ultimately you want to be an owner, you're probably gonna have to learn the skills of all of those things. So here's a path that you can go as far on that path as you decide. And, in 10 years, you go work for somebody for X amount of years. And in that many years, you would be ready to say, go out on your own.
That's right.
I would have bought in hook, line, and sinker.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but are the schools willing to go and talk to classrooms and tell them that? I mean,
Obviously not.
I mean, I don't even think the schools that have great vocational programs are pushing it, because parents would come in and say, I want my kid to go to college. Why are you telling them?
Well, that's the issue. We had Ken Midget on, he's in the plumbing field, Gregg, and he's, he won like plumbing vocational instructor of the year for the whole US like twice.
Wow.
And he told us on this show that if you don't get the kid by 8th grade, you don't get the kid.
Yeah, even before that, I think.
And then they would hold open houses where the kids would be really kind of into it. Like they could see like, hey, and the parents would be like, no, my kid's not going to vocational school.
Interesting.
So there has to be a mind shift to the parents as well, as that this is a legitimate field of employment where you can make a lot of money.
Correct.
I think what they miss is like, oh, my kid's going to go to school and, go work in a bank. It's like, well, you could just go work restoration and make more than that person in like a couple of years.
Absolutely.
A lot of times.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of bank VPs that are making 35 grand. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So it's a nice title. But you're not making any money. So this industry can outstrip that.
I remember we had our mitigation manager he came to us when he was like 18, and he was very bright, came from a not great, neighborhood, and, didn't have a lot of role models that, went to college and all this. So he had kind of looked down on himself because he didn't go to college. And I remember we went into a bank. He was with me one day, and I think he saw somebody that worked in the bank that he went to high school with. And, the guy's got a tie on and a suit.
Exactly.
And we walked out, and I could tell he was like, man, he goes, that guy, he went to college. And I just turned around and went, dude, you make like 3 times what he makes at least. And he was like, really?
Yeah,
I'm like, that dude doesn't make shit.
correct.
Like,
That's
you know,
correct.
you can hold your head up high and you do amazing work and don't ever forget it.
That's right.
And that was kind of a turning point for him. And Larry had many points with him that were similar.
Exactly. And all of a sudden he realized his value and his worth.
Yeah.
And he's thriving right now since he's moved on from us.
But it
So
shows the problem.
But it also, what you guys just displayed right now, which is beautiful for everybody on this podcast, is you just displayed the solution. You see, part of retaining people, and I say this personally with people I bring in my organization. Here's my goal: that you may be here for a greater or lesser period of time. I'm not in charge of that. We'll see how it goes. But my objective is that when you leave here at any point on your continuum, that you are better in life than you were when you got here. And I think that if we all look at, so what you guys did with that mid-manager was you made him better in life, right? That's going to make him a better mid-manager. That's going to make him more confident. But what the lasting impact is that you said you should feel good about yourself, like you are succeeding, and let us show you how you're doing it. That's what Eric and Larry did. That is part of the culture, right? That we've got to have within our organization. I think it's critical. I think when I see so many organizations and the only people of color are techs over and over again, take a look at the pictures that you see, right? You don't see a lot of people of color. And when you go in there, they're either an administrative assistant or a tech, right? Where are the GMs, right? Where are the lead estimators, right? So that there's this entire community that we're missing on in this industry that's out there that at times statistically, now I'm generalizing, but statistically could use an opportunity like this to make a great life for themselves. Right. Are we reaching out at all, or do we have blinders on and we're just not seeing it? And to me, that's the beauty of this industry, and that its greatest days are in its future. Like, we're not there yet. So I'm hoping that things like we're doing here gets the word out to this industry.
Yeah. And I had mentioned on that panel, and you and I talked about it a little bit, that, you know, I believe in marketing your company. Larry and I both believe that you should market your company just for new employees, just like you market for new clients. And
great point.
And one of the things that I really pushed in our company was I wanted athletes. And the reason being was they're coachable. They're used to hard work and sweating and being dirty and wrapping their knuckles and being bloodied and, you know, all the things that really are similar to being a technician.
Good point.
And then they're disciplined and they're used to process, just doing the same boring thing over and over and over and over and over until you perfect it.
Correct.
And, you know, male, female, no matter what color of skin, those things apply to people who then move up the ranks and become estimators and project managers, because it's all the same.
That's right.
I'm not saying only athletes can do these things, but my point is that you have a group of people who are actually perfectly fit for plumbing, heating, restoration, and yet who's marketing to them?
Correct. Right. And the other thing is they understand the value of team.
100%.
Right. So you know, if I am on a baseball team, you know, I want my right fielder to be great. Right. I'm a pitcher. I want my right fielder to be great, because when fly balls are hit out there, I want him to be able to grab them. So I understand that I'm not going to dog this person when he makes an error. I'm gonna put my arm around him and say, dude, you're out there trying. Let's do some little overtime together to get better at this. They understand team, and that is critical, right? You guys owned this one of these businesses. You know the value of team. I mean, without it, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Big
So
time.
what do you think the next 5 to 10 years, what has to happen in our industry to change, or what trend do you see moving forward? Because I mean, you're dealing, Greg, with companies that are far bigger than most of the rest of us.
Right.
So you're running in rarefied air. So, you know, where do you think we're going?
We are, and we're fortunately, and I think properly, beginning to take the steps to be of value to any restoration company, right? We came in with a certain business model and we think that business model is working, but we there are a lot of folks out there that are smaller. And so what do we have to do? I think number one is do things like this. Let's talk about the industry. Let's talk about best practices. If I stop and think about it, if I go to Belfour or Surf Pro or Paul Davis and ask for their Paul Davis University or, Belfour University, they have all this information, right? But you go to Gregg Taylor, restoration company, what do I have there, right? I may have the 1 Minute Manager, like from, 1964, right?
Now, you know what you have, Greg? You have get in the van with me and just watch.
Correct. And I'm glad you said it that way. I'm gonna give you, I was with a guy, sat next to him. I was at an RIA event, sat next to him, very nice guy. Guy said, give me your card. He's real small. He calls me and he says, listen, I want to bring in 2 estimators. And I said, okay. I said, are you ready to get them trained? And he's like, yes. I'm going to take my current estimators that are very successful. I'm going to put these guys with them. And I said to him, listen, we're probably not the company for you, right? But let me share something with you. If your estimators are good estimators, that doesn't mean they're good trainers.
Totally.
And so
Bingo.
what you get is
Bingo.
you get management that's not as good as it should be. You now have new people that are not being managed by people that are as good as they should be. You'll end up losing all 4.
Yep.
And that's an issue, right? I told you I went to owner school, and I wanted to go out in the field. Went out in the fields in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Guy gives me a ride that day, right? We're riding around. True story. We made 7 stops at 7-Eleven. I heard everything about his divorce. I heard about the issues that they were having in corporate with the owner's wife or family. I can't remember. And also that, he's thinking about getting another job someplace else where there's a little less stress. Well, what a welcome day it was for OGT in this industry.
Such a great onboarding for you.
Correct.
And you know what the funny thing is, Greg? That's every single person.
Yeah, it is, man.
That's everybody.
I know.
I can't tell you how many times I hear this from my coaching clients. They don't have an onboarding yet, and the next thing I know is I'll talk to one of the newly minted technicians, and they'll be like, I was out and riding with Steve or Susie, and they told me they're leaving because the owners are blah 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 blah, and I'm like, whoa.
Exactly.
Time out.
Exactly. Time out.
So you send them to Lisa Lavender's school.
Yeah. Lisa Lavender's wow boarding. There has to be a plan.
There does. There is. And I think it probably exists, right? I think organizations like the RIA, for example, right? They've got some tools that can be used. What you guys are doing, Blue Collar Nation, you guys have some tools. We just have to get in front of more people and let them know these tools exist.
Well, and I think, we're being maybe a little unfair to the smaller owner, let's say $1 million and under.
Mm-hmm.
They're so busy just trying to make a living, just trying to get every job done. And Larry and I have been there, that your bandwidth 0.
Correct.
The problem is that you have to get past that, or you will be stuck there forever.
That's right. You have to fight through. Yeah. You got to fight through. No question.
I see it with coaching clients. They just reach that kind of $1 million mark, and all of a sudden it's just like, I don't have time for anything.
Yeah.
It's like, but
the thing is, you're like, oh my gosh, when I get to $1 million, it's going to be so easy. When I have the gross income coming in, like, oh my gosh, you can't. And the same thing with us, when we hit those milestones, like, oh, we didn't even realize. All of a sudden we looked at the P&L and we were way past it. And like, oh, should we celebrate? We don't have time to celebrate because we're just losing our minds.
Yeah. I remember vividly when we hit $1 million, and that, like, when we first started in Larry's garage, that was like, the thought of that seemed so amazing.
Right.
And I remember by that point we had, I don't know, 8-9 people working for us or whatever. And Larry and I were working around the clock, and he walked in my office, and I had just looked at it, I go, hey, we just went past $1 million. And he went, cool. And he just walked out and got in a van and, went to a job or something, and I was just, and I remember I had something to do too. And I was like, Wasn't quite how I imagined it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like you guys remember, like when you're first coming up, like the first job I had out of college, you know, it paid like 25,000, and I'm saying, okay, you know what? If I get to 50, I'm going to have everything I need, right? You get to 50, and now everybody's got that six figures. When I get to six figures, I've got it. You know, you get to six figures, and you're like, what happened? Like I thought this was nirvana, but it's not, and that's where you got to keep grinding. That's where you got to understand it's not about the top line, it's about the bottom line. How much are you keeping, right? It's all those things that really start making a difference for you.
Yeah. So look, I don't want to give away the secrets, but I would like to, if you could, what are the differences between the smaller independent guys and, you know, the bigger companies when it comes to, attracting and retaining? Is it different? Is it the same for everybody? Are we all dealing with it the same? I mean,
I think even with the big boys, I think it's pretty much the same. I mean, even with the big boys, you're talking about a franchise, right? So it doesn't matter that Belfour's doing 2 billion. It's how much are they doing in Oklahoma City at that office, right? Same thing for ServPro at that local location. So I think some of the same practices can take place. I would say number one, train your people and continue to have ongoing training. People that get trained do better, and they think that you're investing in them, and that's critical. Number two, I would say make sure you motivate. Put your arm around somebody, let them know that they're great. Let them know that, yeah, we had a discussion today about how to be better, but I'm only wasting my time having that discussion if it's with somebody that I don't think is going to be great. I'm having it with you because I think you're going to be great, right? And we're going to continue to try to grow together in this. Right? I think that is important. I think making sure that you say thank you to folks is important, right? Give them the ability to grow. I think that's important. So the reality of it is the smaller companies have much more agility in terms of being able to do some of these things than the bigger guys. And
that's a good point.
And that's where the gold nugget is, I think, for those small guys right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And they need to be using that as a marketing to future employees.
Absolutely.
Strategy.
That's correct. That's correct. You want folks that are willing to go out and to let the world know where they work and why they enjoy it. And it's happening. That exists. It's not something that, we read about in a book. It exists. And I think the smaller guys have a much better chance of doing that than the bigger guys.
Yeah, and it's amazing how they find the guys find each other too, because like we had kind of this dive bar a couple miles from our shop, and you drive by and it was kind of a plumber's shop, right? So you'd see like 5 different plumbing vans in the parking lot, and you're just thinking, and what are they doing? They're sitting there talking about their day and comparing companies.
That's correct.
And then that other guy's going, well, actually, this one's great. You should come apply. We're hiring, and all of a sudden the company that's not investing in their people and doing the things, Greg, that you just said, they lose a person.
Well, one of the things that we do that's very effective, could be scary. Like if you're a terrible company, I guess you're going to find out right away. But internally, when we're bringing somebody in, if we're looking for a recruiter, for example, your second call is with one of our recruiters. So I don't know what the conversation is going to be about. We're not involved in it. It'll be interesting to see what they say after they spoke to one of our people, because they're already doing the job, right? And when I hear that, how they talk about the culture of the company, that's how I get my report card, right? It's not what I think, it's not what I say, it's what the results actually are. And I think that plumbers group that you meet, right? Those guys all talking together. When you're hearing great things about your company, people stay, and you have the ability to attract other people. And that's the key, because I don't think that the small guys are in this to stay small. I think they want to get bigger. No. But in order, if they make these changes, they position themselves to have more people, which put you in a position to attract more jobs. And if you want to start getting the bigger jobs, you have to be able to have enough people to handle all the service level agreements and the times you got to push the buttons to keep all those insurance companies happy. So that group that you have is critical to your future. It's the foundation. And if you keep that foundation solid, you have a chance to get to the next level.
So let's, I don't want to take your whole day, but I would like to talk about your company a little bit. So, if I'm a project manager or an estimator and I'm kind of thinking I'd like to test the waters somewhere else, how does that process work with you guys?
Terrific. The couple of ways. You can feel free to call us. We got a toll-free number, 888-237-9797. You can call us there. You can go to our website. So the word exactly without the E at the beginning. It's exactly BY by GTE, exactly by GTE. We've got probably 70% of our jobs are posted right there on the website, and you can apply right online. You can shoot an email to any of us. I'm Gregg, Gregg, at exactlybygte.com. Either way, so candidates have several ways to get to us. We also post jobs out there under the Exactly by GTE banner. And then we look at who they are and what the best fit for them might be.
So do you actually interview that? Like you start talking to them?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We want to get a feel for who they are. What are they trying to accomplish? Right. And what are the best questions that we ask? And maybe hopefully my competitors won't be watching this. But one of the questions we like to ask is under the right terms and conditions, what would you want from your next position? And that helps us understand where they might be a good fit or where it could be a challenge, but we have to learn them also.
So also a business can call you if they're looking for a project manager or somebody as well. Or,
absolutely. We don't even have a sales rep yet. Now I do have one interview tomorrow actually, but we don't have one. We've not had the need for one. We literally get jobs every week. I think I always say I have a really good team. It's not me. They do a good job. People say good things about us and folks call, but yeah, businesses can reach us the same way. Toll-free number. They can call me directly. They can go to our website and fill out an info form and send that over. But yeah, we're here for any business. Want to know what they're doing and see if we're a good match to try to help you. We believe in trying to support people's success.
Yeah. Well, Gregg, we wish you nothing but the success. You're doing the hard work in our field. There's no doubt that what you're doing is not easy stuff.
Well, thank you for saying that. But I do want to say that guys like you and Larry that have been in this business, that are looking at what's happening in the industry and how can we make it better for the industry, it's selfless move. Like you guys are doing this because you want to see the industry get better. And I've got great appreciation and respect for you guys. So if there's ever anything I can do for you guys, please let me know. But let's definitely stay in touch and thank you for letting me take some of your time today.
Thank you. It was really informative. You had some awesome stuff there. So bottom line is you need to be attractive as a company to get Gregg's people to want to come work for you. And then they'll tell their friends and stay.
Bottom line, we could have done this like in 3 minutes and had beers for the last half hour, right?
There you go. Well, Gregg, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, guys. We'll see you.
Wonderful.
Don't
Thanks,
go
Gregg.
away.
We're out.
Don't leave.
All right.